So I just watched Toy Story 5 here at the AMC theater, and I have thoughts, and I have lots of them. And I'm gonna break down everything about this movie and how it was actually really good, but also really terrible at the same time. And I'll explain why, and specifically how it's hurting society in a very specific way, and specifically men, and how their leadership style is completely slacking and lacking because of this kind of stuff that Hollywood is doing. So I want to give a breakdown, and I'll tie this all into the subconscious mind, which is a lot of the stuff that we talk about here on this YouTube channel. So what's up, guys? My name is Nico, a Rapicalist. We usually talk about entrepreneurship and subconscious and self-image psychology and really becoming the best entrepreneur and business owner you can, all starting with the inside first. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about Toy Story 5. I love them. I grew up on them. You know, Toy Story 1, 2. I think that's kind of where I stopped, though. I didn't really see a ton more of that. And then I heard all the rage about this Toy Story 5. And I'm out in Colorado taking some time off, spending time with family and friends for the 4th of July. Had a day where we went to a water park earlier today, and now we just decided to do a little matinee, a little bit of a cheaper price, and ate some terrible popcorn and watched a movie. So it was interesting too, because I haven't been to a movie in quite some time, and it was just like very automated. I was kind of laughing and joking at the fact that, like, are we gonna see any actual humans in here? But anyways, that's just all that to be said. And the reason I say terrible popcorn is because, like, you know, popcorn's great and all, but like when it says butter flavoring and it's not actually even real butter, that's, you know, everything that's like with this type of stuff and in Hollywood, and I don't know, it's just like, I'm very conscious of what I put into my body. I'm very conscious of what I put into my mind, and that's why I have lots of thoughts around this movie. So let's get into this. I think there's some really great things, like I said, a lot of great things about this film, and unfortunately I feel like they were all pretty much ruined by the end of the film. So what are some of those things that were really great about this film? Well, I think one of the first things is it brought a lot of awareness to how devices are really ruining a lot of things, and specifically with children. So the premise, first and foremost, was that, like, the kids aren't playing with toys anymore. And I mean, the conversations I've had with parents, that seems to be a commonality, especially younger and younger, they're stopped playing with toys. And I just think it's, generally speaking, a challenging time to be a kid right now. And so it brought a lot of awareness to that, which I don't think that there's been a whole lot of films or TV shows or anything that's like acknowledging and addressing the elephant in the room, right? We're all just kind of all on devices. You're watching this on a device. I'm making this on a device. It's like no one's really addressing the big elephant in the room. Now, I've made videos on this YouTube channel about dopamine detoxes. I'm going to continue to make them, so I'd encourage you to watch those, because you got to understand what's really happening to our minds when we're constantly on devices and we're chasing cheap dopamine as opposed to long-lasting dopamine, like good dopamine, rather than like cheap dopamine, because it's a, you know, and I'm not going to go incredibly in depth on that. Again, go watch some of those other videos, or stay tuned for the future ones that I will be making here shortly. But you got to understand what these devices are doing to us and how it's making it more and more difficult every single time. And it's like, it's so easy to get addicted to these devices because there's these companies, you know, social media, but even like just all these companies that are surrounding with tech, like they're pouring millions, if not billions of dollars a month into discovering how they can keep people on platform for longer periods of time, because that's really the algorithm in a nutshell. I mean, it's always evolving and changing, and there's little nuances here, but generally speaking, the thing that they're always looking for is watch time. And they will reward creators for how long, like if they're having people, their audience is watching for longer periods of time, then they'll get more exposure because they're keeping people on platform, which is the same way to say keeping people addicted to it. And that's like the premise behind this. And this was what it was showing, like all these toys were like having these conversations and saying like toys are done. Like that era of toys are done because they're being replaced by devices. And it was just showing all the kids in there about how they were just staring at devices, and that's how they make friends now, which is crazy. Like, you can't make friends unless you're on these devices and you're part of the cool kids talking and playing games and in the group chat. But then if you do something that the group doesn't agree with, then they all, you know, come at you and say, like, they ridicule you. And that was what actually happened in this story. And so it pulled on a lot of heartstrings, and it was really unfortunate. And that's the thing that's happening today more than ever. Like, it's not new that kids have been cruel and bullied kids that don't think and agree with them, but this is just like a whole nother level to that. So I think just the fact that they brought awareness to that, awesome, really cool. And I think anytime we can bring awareness to something, it's just going to open up the conversation, which it's really important to open up the conversation, have more conversation around this rather than not talking about the elephant in the room. So I thought that was fantastic. I also thought it was really cool how they brought in like a lot of components from the previous Toy Stories. Woody was like this, he was a lot older. His head was going bald because it was like he was getting old, and it was like shining on all the other Buzz Lightyears, and it was showing like how the Buzz Lightyears were evolving with technology. They ended up having like drone wings, which was really kind of interesting and unique by the end of the film. And like, yeah, it was generally pretty cool. And then it was showing how these two girls were like really connecting, because they were kind of quote unquote outcasts because they want to keep playing with toys. And they were kind of excluded from these groups, and they kept on like not getting invited to things or getting, they were not being included because they were not as up with the devices. And so it was really cool how they got reconnected because of the fact that they were ones that didn't want to succumb to the pressure and just play with devices all the time. So that was kind of cool too. And then it was like the toys were bringing them back together, which was really cool. And yeah, it was just like a great film. But here's the problem that I had with it. And so again, like I said, Hollywood has been doing this for decades, and it's demasculizing men, and it's absolutely screwing things up. I mean, it's no secret that men are at some of the lowest points that we've ever been at because they don't know how to lead. They don't know how to stay in their masculine. We've got all this transgender shit that's going on now because it's saying like, oh, it's okay to be this way and it's okay to be this way. And it's fine. Like, I have friends that are gay and they're awesome. The problem I have is like when things are like, the roles are just like completely reversed, and it's like all these extreme things that are just like so beyond. And so I think that one of the other biggest things that I'll get to here in a second is like how they're reversing roles, which is totally fucked. Like there's it's just fucking ridiculous. So generally speaking, and they layered this through the entire movie, but Buzz Lightyear, one of the main Buzz Lightyear, because there was a bunch of them, and that's a whole nother aspect to the story, which the movie had so many different aspects. It was moving quick. Like, obviously we're in a speedy time, so like you have to do that to keep people's attention, which is another big old part of the issue, where like if you're not moving things quickly, you're not going to hold people's attention. That's what they've discovered, because our attention span is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And that's what people are doing now, because like the standard is so much higher now for cheap dopamine. So that's a whole nother aspect. Again, I'll get into that on a future video. But coming back to the Buzz Lightyear. So Buzz Lightyear, the whole movie was acting like just a feminine dude. And he was so interested in Jessie, which was the cowgirl. And then on top of that, in addition to him being like feminine, Jessie was much more in her masculine. And so I've read this book, and I've had so many conversations about The Way of the Superior Man. Great book, talks about how like energies like between a masculine and feminine, that's what I'm talking about with like gay relationships. That's fine, but there has to be a masculine and a feminine, and when those roles are reversed, that's when things get fucked. So what happened in this movie is that Buzz Lightyear was very much in his feminine, and then Jessie was very much in her masculine. And so, you know, Buzz Lightyear was, the whole movie was overthinking how he wanted to propose to her, and he was like wanted to tell her how much he liked her, and like instead of just being a man and going up to her and like leading, right? And that's the whole point of being a masculine dude and leading, is you're actually leading your partner, but you're leading your family. And again, there's such a lack of leaders in their family, which is the man's responsibility. And so Hollywood has been just subliminally putting this in all their films to show that the man is just completely demasculated, which is constantly reprogramming our subconscious to believe that that's normal and that's cool. And then they even make jokes about it so that it's funny, so that it makes your guard drop even more, and then they just think that it's normal. And that was just completely here as well. And so here's the thing, is that by the end of the movie, when it finally came to the point where there was a moment when Buzz could like make his move, he was like stumbling over his words. And like, I'm not like throwing shade at stumbling over your words. Like, I've been nervous to talk to women and make a move and stuff like that, but you still do it. And so what ends up happening is he's like stumbling over his words, and instead of letting him like move through that and then stand his ground and take the lead and do it and like make his move on her, what ended up happening is she took the lead, and then she kissed him, and then she pushed him away after that, because they had to keep on going on the mission. That should be exactly where Buzz is in the complete opposite, where he's like, hey, if I don't do this right now, it's never gonna happen. Pull her in, kiss her, and then say, we got a mission to finish. Like, that's a man right there. And it was completely flipped to show that Jessie was the man in that situation. She was in the masculine energy in that situation, and Buzz was completely in the feminine. Okay, it goes even further to this, because once it finally started ending, and then like the happy ever after part started coming into fruition, the two girls that ended up connecting in this film, that were kind of the outcasts, they started playing together, which was awesome, right? And they're playing with their toys instead of being on technology, and they made this whole scene about Buzz and Jessie getting married. But here's the totally fucked up part, is that Buzz was the one being walked down the aisle, which I think we all know by this point in time that a female, the woman, is the one that's actually being walked down the aisle. That's tradition, right? And she's the one being given away. So completely flipped. The masculine and the feminine was completely flipped, where Buzz was being walked down the aisle and given away. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Right? And then even on top of that, this was another aspect. When Jessie finally kissed him and just like pulled him in and kissed him, he lifted up his leg like a woman. Like, are you kidding me? And so the reason that I make a big deal about this, and I even make a point to tell you this story and share my thoughts on this movie, is because this is the problem. And the biggest problem around this is that, again, like I mentioned earlier, is that guard was dropped. Great movie. It was heartwarming. They pulled a lot of heartstrings. There was a lot of humor. It was fun. Like, brought in so many different aspects from the different Toy Story movies. It was an awesome movie. It really was good, but it was just that little tweak in there. And the problem I have with that is that having a great movie, awesome stuff, there was a lot more females in the movie, so I have to guess that it's going to attract a lot more of a female audience, which then they're gonna see this and then be like, oh, that's hilarious, that's funny, great movie, hilarious. And then this was interesting too, is that like when I saw Buzz being walked down the aisle, at first I laughed. I was like, that's absolutely ridiculous. But even the fact that I laughed, I'm pretty aware of this type of stuff, shows me how like good they're getting at like infiltrating this stuff to get it into their subconscious, which is ultimately gonna just continue to drive behavior. And so ultimately, like, guard was dropped, funny movie, great stuff, and then guard's dropped, and now they can implement all that stuff that they really want to perpetuate in society, which you may or may not think that I'm taking this a little bit overboard, but if you think about any major Hollywood film over the last 15, 20 years, you look at, where are the masculine men? Where are the leaders that are leading the charge, that are leading their women, that are leading the tribe, that are like really strong masculine dudes? You don't see it often. And when you perpetuate this over and over and over, and this is what everyone is watching, so much exposure, so many people are watching these films, it's infiltrating into our subconscious, making us believe that this is normal, that it's true, that it's okay. And that's why we're having such problems in society where men are just not stepping up as leaders. It's just not happening. And then families are being broken apart, and like because of the fact that the man is not leading the relationship and the family, like that's where a huge aspect that is going wrong with society today, because men are not being men. And media is one of the first places that controls people, how they think, and they don't just say it, they do it subtly, just like what they're doing here in Toy Story 5. And this is just case after case after case after case. So that's what I got to share about Toy Story 5. And this is why it's so imperative to be intentional about what you want to create, and then start reprogramming your mind after you figure out what it is that you do want to create. And that's what we help with all our entrepreneur clients. And so we start everyone with the vision quiz. So if you are ready to step up as a leader so that you can really take charge and help us really take this and bring society back together, starting with leaders, then go ahead and take the vision quiz. You can click the link down in the video description. And then again, be on the lookout for some of these new videos that I'm gonna start creating about dopamine and that whole thing. And I'm gonna be talking a lot more about this. We're gonna keep diving so much more into self-image psychology, what's really going on with devices, and how they're just, if we're not being intentional and using them correctly and using them in a useful, helpful way, then it's just gonna continue to be the demise of society. Not all in one moment, but it's just gonna happen over time, because we're gonna keep seeing stuff like this. So it's time to take a stand. Go take the vision quiz, and we'll talk to you guys on the next video. Peace out.